Center in Omaha. Before we dive into our main topic, allow me to tell you very briefly about our organization. If I can click on my slides. There we go. So the Nebraska Business Development Center, for those who don't know, is a nonprofit organization that has been around since 1977. We cover the whole state of Nebraska. We have 8 different office locations, and the Omaha office, which is where I am based, and so is Wei and Rick. So the Omaha office is our lead center. It is housed at the University of Nebraska at Omaha in the College of Business. NBDC enjoys a very strong relationship with the Small Business Administration. I won't go into all the details, but a big component of our relationship with SBA is a funding component. But in addition to that, we partner on several different projects. I don't know how familiar you guys all are with the services NBDC provides. I won't go into the details. I have included the link to our website so you can take the time and browse at your leisure. But we do strive to cover, to provide services that cover the entire life cycle of businesses. Our motto is helping good businesses become better, and I have to say that we really try to stand by that. And the reason I say that is that we are not, as a nonprofit, are a third-party, neutral technical assistance provider to entrepreneurs. We're not a funding agency, so we get to be truly unbiased in the services and the advice we provide. And our success, our metrics, are tied directly to the success of our businesses. So that really sets us apart. So now a little bit about me. I'm a graduate of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. I have both an MBA and a Master of Science in MIS. I also am a certified economic development professional through the National Development Council. I am a certified global business professional through the National Association of Small Business International Trade Educators. Now that's quite a mouthful. They go by NICEBITE for short. I've been working with NBDC since 2009. I have quite a bit of passion for what I do. I enjoy my job. I lead a small team of consultants. As a team, we have served 343 entrepreneurs since January of this year. And during the same time frame, we have helped them generate over $16 million in bank financing and equity investments. Now, the majority of the people my team works with are what I would call traditional entrepreneurs. But having said that, we have also been increasingly working with what I will refer to as the innovative entrepreneurs. The main distinction here is that the more traditional entrepreneurs tend to pursue business models that are fairly common and have already been tested. So this would be, for example, the clients that start a retail space or hair salon, construction company, what have you. So the traditional entrepreneurs tend to go after a more traditional form of funding, such as bank financing. They are very good candidates for commercial loans. On the other hand, those that I call innovative operate in a completely different space. So the innovative entrepreneurs operate in the space of new technology development and mostly research. So they tend to be, the innovative entrepreneurs tend to be a little bit more product focused and less operation focused. They also tend to pursue a different type of funding. So different alternative sources such as research grants or private investments and things like that. This will be an interesting distinction to note as we proceed. And I would like to point out that as much as we like innovation and technology, both types of entrepreneurs are needed. No matter how technologically advanced we get as a society, I have a hard time imagining a time when people will get their haircuts online. So we need a little bit of both to create balance. Maybe we'll get there, but not anytime soon. All right. Here is a quick glimpse at today's agenda. First, I'd like to explore the concept of business planning, and hopefully I will be able to clear up some of the confusion that surrounds the terminology. And maybe, just maybe, I can help overcome some of the resistance that you feel when you hear that you need a business plan. And then next, we'll take a look at high-level business planning, and I will discuss a tool that can help you get started on your own business plan narrative. Excuse me. So at the end, we'll make time for Q&A, just like Wei said. If you have questions in the meantime, you could probably type them up, and I can see if I can answer as we go. So, what is business planning anyway? One of my personal pet peeves is that the term business plan is always equated with the written document. And by extension, when you hear business planning, you automatically think of the process of writing the business plan document. So I like to reframe this thinking and offer the idea that a business plan is a little bit more than just a document. So one thing that happens often is that when people come in to see me and I ask them if they have a business plan, their first knee-jerk reaction is, nope, I don't have one. I didn't write anything. I don't have a business plan. Then I ask them about what they're trying to do. And they have this whole story. They tell me all about their business idea. Well, guess what? They have a plan. They just never put it in writing. So when you start thinking about how your product or your service will benefit the customer, you are putting together a little piece of your business plan. When you think about which marketing tactics will work well for your particular audience, or when you think about which sales channels you need to use, you are technically building your business plan. So in a broader sense, the business plan is a set of decisions that aim to ensure the success of a venture. It's as simple as that. It's a set of decisions. And I say, I put on the slide that it's based on assumptions, because one thing I run into is that people wait, or they expect that at some point they'll have perfect information, and then they can write this static document that'll be the Bible that they have to follow. Well, it's not really how it works. Whether you're a more traditional entrepreneur or an innovative entrepreneur, everything you do when you start a venture is based on your assumptions. There's never going to be a time when you have all this perfect information, you make the perfect decisions. It's always a gamble. So based on assumptions, just so that we can keep in mind that business planning is not a static thing. It's not something you do once. It's an ongoing, flexible process. Speaking of process, so business planning is a process of deciding the what, where, why, and how of your business. What products to offer, where to compete, both in terms of geography and market segment, why customers will buy your products, and finally, how you will accomplish your goals. And this means what kinds of structures need to be set in place for the project or the venture to be successful. So, if you don't know the what, why, where, and how, you have some work to do. If you can't answer these questions, I would guess that you're probably not ready to apply for any kind of funding. It doesn't mean that your case is hopeless. It just means that your idea has not had enough time to marinate yet. So you need to do some research, you need to do some more research, and spend some time with your idea and attempt to answer all the questions. If you want someone to give you money for your idea, you need to be able to answer these questions. So this is the first test. Can you answer these 4 questions? If you can, if you have thought about these things and you have an answer to the questions, then you may very well have a plan, whether you realize it or not. Or at the very least, you have the beginning of one. It may not be complete, and you probably still have some details to iron out. Remember, this is a flexible, ongoing process, but you have a great starting point. So the first thing I hope you'll take away, if you don't listen to anything else and you just hang up right now, the first thing I hope you take away is that the business plan is more than just a document. It's how all of the different pieces fit together. The second thing I want you to take away is that business planning is not this overly burdensome, unnecessary task that some outsider is forcing on you and that you have to resist. It's not. Business planning is a natural progression in the entrepreneurial process. It is an absolutely vital component that helps you create the business venture and helps you materialize your idea. So there's no need to be scared of it. And oh, by the way, as entrepreneurs, most of you are already doing it. You are already building your business plan as you go. So now that we've clarified what business planning is, I'd like to make the case for the actual written document that outlines the overall strategy. So let's talk about how the entrepreneur's mind works. In my experience, there's never a singular moment in time where the full picture just comes together and you have this aha moment and you have it all figured out. It doesn't happen in one specific instant. What I mean by that is that as an entrepreneur, you are constantly experiencing things, you're learning, you're noticing things that you would like to incorporate into your project. So once you start your entrepreneurial journey, your mind starts collecting pieces of relevant information. You read something on the internet, or you talk to someone, and you have a breakthrough moment, and you think to yourself, oh, this is a great idea. I should do X, Y, and Z for my business. Or, you get a little piece of information and you decide, hey, you should apply this and, use it with your product concept. Or you are just driving down the road, going home after work, minding your own business, going about your life, and then you see a sign or you see a billboard or something that triggers, an aha moment in you, and then you come up with a great idea that absolutely has to be incorporated into your project. So your mind keeps collecting these moments of genius, and then you start forgetting things because, new things are always popping up. Or you try really hard to keep track of everything and remember everything, keeping it all in your head, and you drive yourself crazy. So this is where your business plan comes in. This is where the written document, the business plan narrative comes in. Write down your ideas. Try to keep them all in the same place. Use your mind for processing. As an entrepreneur, you should be thinking about strategies and connecting the dots. Don't use your mind for storing. Use it for processing, not for storing, just like the RAM on your computer. So the business plan is a really good tool for you internally. So within your venture, whether you are a full-fledged company, legit company with employees big and all that, or maybe it's just you and a partner in the early stages, or it may just be you and no one else. The business plan helps you organize all these spontaneous thoughts into something bigger, something that's more comprehensive and more cohesive. And as you write these ideas, you see how it all fits together. And whether it does or not, you may have to adjust, you may have to go and change things, but it helps to see them side by side on the same document. And it helps you see the big picture. It helps you identify blind spots. So this is just what it does for you internally. It keeps you sane. Now, outside of your venture, the business plan is a great communication tool. If you want someone external, someone outside of your company, to buy into your idea, whether you're looking for funding or whether you're looking for, I don't know, other forms of support, you have to be able to present them with the full picture. You can't give people bits and pieces because it won't make sense to them, right? You can't just expect them to trust you without any proof either. So if you would like to make a compelling argument for your business, you have to give as full a picture as you can. So give them your business plan narrative. Give them your document and make sure that it outlines your entire strategy. So here's the thing, folks. The written document is a tool. It has no power over you. You can change it. It doesn't have to be static. You can format it however you want. You are totally in control of it. It is a tool and it should be used as such. It is based on your assumptions, and just because of that, it cannot be static because you will learn more things and your assumptions will change. So the business plan narrative should evolve with you as you grow in your business and come across new information. So let's say that I convinced you. You know, you buy into the whole business planning idea, you understand why it's crucial, you're ready to start working on your own document. Where do you turn? And this is where people get tripped up. If you just Google business plan, you will be bombarded with options. So this is where you need to remember the distinction I made earlier about the innovative entrepreneur being different than the traditional entrepreneur. And you need to decide where you fall within that. Are you an innovative entrepreneur, or are you a more traditional entrepreneur? And the way you do that is by figuring out if your business idea is based on a well-known business model. Has your revenue model already been tested by someone else? Are you ready to focus on the operational detail of your business? And what I mean by that is, can you start worrying about hours of operation, how much staffing you need, what kind of storefront display you need to use, how many cash registers, what POS system you need? If yes, if you are at that level, then there are loads of business plan templates you can choose from. There are so many on the internet. You can just pick whichever one you like best. You can pick any of them and start working. There is no magical length requirement. People ask me all the time, how long does it have to be? However long it takes you to explain your full idea. So there's no magical length requirement. There is no ultimate outline that is the absolute best that everyone loves out there. You have the freedom to choose the format that appeals to you, and you have the freedom to express your creativity. I promise you, there is no business plan police out there that's going to check the pages and make sure you're using the template. There's no such thing. So just make sure your narrative paints a complete picture of what you're trying to do. That's if you decide that you're the traditional entrepreneur. If you are an innovative entrepreneur, you are not at the operational level yet. So the business plan means something totally different to you. Your focus is at a higher level. Your business model is still being tested. You have a lot of assumptions, and that's all fine. That's great, actually. What you shouldn't do is try to use a traditional business plan template and force it to work for you, because it won't. You're just not there. You'll find that you have a lot of unknowns, and you'll either get frustrated or you'll start to feel defeated. And there's probably nothing wrong with your idea. You are just at an earlier stage than what the traditional templates are built for. So what you need to do is find a tool that works at your level. You still need to be able to communicate your idea, so you have to go out there and find something that works. This is not a step you get to skip. And when I say go out and find something that works for you, I obviously mean just use Google. You'll find something. I'm sorry. So, how do you do business planning at a higher level? If you are not yet ready to map out your day-to-day operations, which areas should you focus on? That's what we'll talk about next. So I am sure you guys have all heard about the lean trend in business development. We won't go into the details of the whole movement here, the whole lean movement, but let's take a look at what the lean approach can help you do. When you're planning on a higher level, these are the areas you're most likely to focus on. So lean business planning helps you describe your high-level strategy, focus on the overall business model, explore revenue generation models, and list out your assumptions. So what it does is provide a larger framework for you to work within. So you are no longer bound by the myopic perspective that comes from just focusing on the product and the technology without a bigger picture. So it gives you a bigger perspective, basically. At NBDC, we have a tool we like to use called the Lean Business Canvas. Now, we won't take credit for it because we didn't come up with it. We did not create it. It has been adapted from Mr. Osterwalder's business model canvas, which was presented in his book. titled what was it? Business Model Generation. And the model was further made popular by Steve Blank, who I'm sure you've heard of. So this is a really cool model. It works. It's popular for a reason. So you've probably heard of it. Our version of it has some light modifications, which we did to make it easy to use and understand across our entire client base. And as you remember, our client base includes both traditional and innovative entrepreneurs. So we wanted the tool to work for everyone, to be easy to use. So the credit for making all these changes goes to the head of our organization, Dr. Robert Bernier. He did it, and we've been using it ever since. So as with the original tool, ours focuses on 9 main areas. We just renamed them differently, but it's still 9 areas of focus. What problems you're trying to solve, which customers you're trying to serve, what's your value proposition, what solution are you proposing, what will be your channels of distribution, how will you reach your customers, what revenue streams, what's your cost structure, which metrics will you track, and what is your unfair advantage, which just another way of saying what is your competitive advantage, your competitive edge. So I recommend filling out a template using this order because it seems to be the most intuitive order. I've used this enough with my clients that this seems to help them figure out how to go through it. But really, if you don't like this order, you can just start wherever you want on the canvas. And as long as you get it done, you're going to get the same benefit. So let's take a look at our template. Most of the innovative entrepreneurs I have met with had no problem telling me all about their technology. That's what they live and breathe, technology. They want to tell you all about the cool aspects of it. They want to tell you about the science behind it, how the technology works. They know all that stuff. They know all the technical aspects of the product. And to be honest, half the time I don't even know what they're talking about because I don't have expertise in that area. And it's exciting. It's great that they have this technical knowledge because that's what's needed. But what I try to do, and tends to be a lot harder for them to do, is to describe the bigger picture surrounding the technical idea. So you may have an idea for a beautiful piece of technology. You think it's the best thing since forever. No one else has thought of it. It's amazing. It's great. You brag about it. But unless you find a market for it, unless you can explain how it's used and who will use it and how it all works, then it may never see the light of day. If there's not a market for it, it doesn't matter how beautiful it is. No one will see it. So then that's what I spend a lot of my time doing, is getting them to think, to be less product-centric and think about the larger perspective surrounding that product. And this exercise helps with that. So when they're putting together narratives for different purposes and it asks for the technical aspects of their business, I don't even worry. I know they have it handled. I trust them to know their technology and things like that. That's not really what MBDC is here for. We're not here to judge technology. But what I want to do, what I strive to do, is get them to think at a higher level about everything that comes with that technology, how to make it a viable project, a viable product. So, I guess, so the exercise takes away focus from the technical intricacies of the technology, helps shape a larger perspective, explore viability of the product, of the concept. And I keep saying this, I know I'm repeating myself, but it's because this is an important point that people often miss. They think if the technology is great, it'll sell itself. It doesn't work like that. That's why this exercise is important. So now, following the order listed on the previous slide, let's look at how you would go about filling this out. So you start with the problems because that's the easiest place to start. What are you trying to do? What problems, what gap are you trying to fill? What problem are you solving? What pain points have you identified? And what are you trying to address? Once you've figured out what your problems are, who would be a good customer for your product? So our state director likes to say that every business lives in contemplation of a customer. And I think the quote is attributed to Peter Drucker or something like that, but don't quote me on that. I'm not quite sure. It's a cool quote because it's so true. Without a customer, you have no business. So when you think about writing who your customer is, try to be as detailed as possible. If you can, create a profile, or I think it's called a customer persona. What does your customer look like? How much do they make? What level of education do they have? Where do they live? How do they make their purchasing decision? The more specific you can get with that, the better, because then you can tailor your overall message to what that particular segment of customer wants. Then, once you've figured out your customer, you need to figure out what your value proposition is. What is it that you're offering that makes you the best alternative to the customer? And I chose my words carefully. I said best alternative because there's typically competition out there. I've met with enough people that come in and think that there's no competition, that their idea is unprecedented. They're the first one to think of it. There's nothing like that out there. We have found that typically that's not true. There is something out there. It may not be a direct competitor, but there is something out there that is filling the need that you are trying to fill as well. So sometimes it's not an apple-to-apple comparison. It could be an apple-to-orange comparison. So be really aware of any other alternatives that the customers have out there, and define what your value proposition is and why people would choose your product over all the other options. So in the very unlikely scenario that your idea is truly the first of its kind and no one else is out there and there's absolutely no competition, which is, like I said, very, very, very unlikely. But if that were to happen, then why would someone choose to buy your product? Why would they buy it if they were fine before they found out about it? So if they never thought there was a need and they never tried to find another alternative, what would suddenly make them want to spend money on your product? The other part of that is that if you truly come up with something that's new, that's never been tested, that there's no competition for, it's probably going to be pretty expensive to the end user. So why would they challenge the status quo and buy something they never thought they needed before? So after you've talked about the value proposition, now you can talk about your solution. So now that you've determined what your unique take on the product is, what is unique about what you do, what does the solution look like? And that's pretty straightforward. What is the product you're offering? What is the service you're offering? Go into as much detail as you'd like. This part people don't typically have a problem with because that's where they start off. So once you've talked about the solutions and all that, look at the channels box. So you've found out what problem you're trying to solve. You've figured out who your customers are. You've figured out your value proposition. You have a solution to offer. How do you now reach your targeted audience? How do you get your product to them? And that's where channels comes in. So you get it to the customer. Let's look at your revenue streams. How do you make money? Who is paying for what you're selling? How is it sold? And keep in mind that the end user is not always the person paying for the service. So, for example, if you're coming up with some kind of, I don't know, healthcare, some kind of medical device, it may not be the patient who benefits from it in the end that pays for it. It could be something that insurance pays for. Or let's use another example. Let's say you're coming up with a mobile app. They're very popular now. We have a lot of people who want to start apps. Well, who pays for that? I mean, if there's a business advertising through your app, do they pay for it? Or does the user pay for it because they're getting such value that they're willing to pay for it? So these are things that need to be defined from the beginning, because if you're your paying customer is a business, your overall strategy will be very, very different than if your end user is the one paying for it, because they're looking at it from a different perspective. So it's important to figure out the revenue streams. So the next one is cost structure. So you figured out how to get to the customer and sell it to them. What is your cost structure? And we spend quite a bit of time here when I work with clients looking at all the costs that go into them making the product. And there's usually costs that they don't think about until I mention them. But there's a whole lot of different kinds of expenses that go into producing new products, new technology. So things like development costs, production costs, sales costs, delivery, inventory, things like that. So there, insurance, I mean, there's a lot out there. So do your research and find out all the costs that go into your product. Then look at your metrics. What will you measure? What will you keep track of so that you can evaluate how well you're doing? You can't just operate in a vacuum. You need some kind of a benchmark to let you know if you're doing the way you intended to or if you need to adjust and try in a different direction. So it's important to have metrics. So I wanted to give you the blank canvas first so that you could follow along and kind of figure out how it needs to be filled out. This second slide includes all of the details of how it needs to be filled out. We'll make sure you get a copy of this if you want it, and we'll make sure you have a copy of the slides as well. But I'm not going to read through all of this. We kind of talked about it. It's the same thing, but with instructions. And here's yet another version of it that we use. I wanted to make sure you had access to all the tools we have. I've used this with my clients to kind of help them navigate the process and do things in the order that we discussed. So this is just another view of the same thing. So one thing I'll say about this tool is that we've used it with our clients and it works well, but it's one of your many options out there. And I think a lot of the clients we work with spend so much time trying to find the right tool or spend so much time trying to get out of doing what they're supposed to do that they don't put their focus where it needs to be, which is making your business a reality and making it happen. Writing a business plan or going through this Lean Business Canvas shouldn't take away the focus from what you're trying to do. It's an additional tool. It's a way for you to put it, you know, in one cohesive document and communicate with other people. So this is not a burdensome thing. It shouldn't be. It should be something that helps you move forward and communicate your idea. So typically you'd go through the canvas and you may not like the way it looks at first. That's why we keep it short. It's one page. You can toss it, pick a new one, and start all over. So go through this, go through a few iterations if that's what it takes, and then when you have a version that you're happy with, then your next step is to start developing a short narrative using these 9 boxes. It doesn't have you don't have to follow a particular format or put it with a certain. You just need to start a Word document, use the headers, and then start writing. Because chances are when you did the template, when you filled out the template, you used bullet points, you used short list, you kept it really concise. So now is your chance to actually expand on things and write everything in a short paragraph, in paragraph formats. So not just one paragraph, but in paragraph formats. So this is where you start. You figure out what your business is, you figure out where your 9 elements are, how you plan on competing, what you're trying to achieve, where you fit within the bigger picture, and then you put a narrative together. You start writing. So this is the revenue model. We will do this. We will sell online. We will go through a distributor, whatever it may be. But you start putting it in writing. And you'll come up with something that's maybe 2 pages long, maybe more. And that's great. That's a great thing for you to have. You'll be able to use it in so many ways. One thing to remember, though, is once you have this narrative, it's not the end-all, be-all of all narratives. It's not that it's static, you're done, you never have to work on this again. Like we said earlier, it's probably going to change. It has to be flexible. You know you'll have to make changes to it as you get more information. So be prepared to do that. Also, this is not your entire business plan, right? So, or it's not your entire narrative, business proposal, whatever you want to call it. Depending on what you need to use it for, you will have to add additional information. So think about it as a building block for a larger narrative. You'll have the gist written out, but be sure to consider your audience and tailor it, the larger narrative to the audience. So if you're trying to apply for some kind of a grant, whether it be through the Department of Economic Development or some federal agency, find out what the requirements are. Go to their website. They usually have a document that tells you this is what we need. And you'll see common things like, everybody wants to know what your management team looks like. Everybody wants to know maybe a little bit more about your professional background and what experience you have that makes you qualify for this kind of a project. And you should be prepared to add that to your narrative or whatever else is relevant as needed. So this is key. You can't write one narrative that you just use for everything. You have to find out the requirement for whatever you're applying for and tailor the narrative to those requirements. And hopefully going over the Canvas will give you the largest part of your business plan already written, and then you can just add other pieces as needed. The other thing I'll say is once you find out what the requirements are for your particular application, make sure you call. If you don't understand what they mean by, list your financial assumptions, call them and say, okay, what do you mean by that? Because I can interpret it differently and you may think it's something else. Why not just call them? They usually provide a phone number and you can call them and ask someone directly what they mean by that, and then you can stop wasting time trying to figure out and just write what they told you to write. When you are done with your narrative, have it reviewed. I know Wei has reviewed several narratives. I know I have reviewed my fair share of business plans. So be sure to reach out. It's nice to have another pair of eyes to look to make sure that it's easy to understand, that for someone who's not in your industry, the pieces fit together. Because, you speak your jargon and you know your industry, but whoever you're asking for funding or whoever you're applying with may not know that particular technology. So it's nice and cool that you have this nanoparticle that does this wonderful stuff and has all this magic in it. It's great. But what does it mean to someone who's trying to give you money and who knows about finances and who may be worried more about scalability and less about whether the technology is sound? So just read your audience and try to prepare for what they're looking for. And be prepared to pivot. So this is another one of those keywords out there. But, we've talked about how whether you're a traditional business owner or entrepreneur, or you're more of an innovative entrepreneur, you're always operating under assumptions. And things will change, and some of your assumptions will not be true. And once you debunk those, you'll come up with new ones. So none of the business plans you write will ever be the final version. And that's okay. We just need to be prepared for it always being work in progress. So if you do your lean canvas and you think it's great, you write your little narrative, you go on the website of the agency, you find out what they want, you write it out the way they want it or the way you think they want it, you send it in and it gets denied, I think typically there is a chance for you to resubmit. So at that point, you just need to go back to the drawing board, go through the lean canvas again. The good thing, like I said, one page. You can do that exercise in a short period of time, assuming that you've done your research and you kind of have the overall strategy in your head. Putting it on paper is not the hardest part. So you can go back and you can tweak your narrative. And typically, it doesn't have to be a super consuming process. And the reason I say this is not because it's not obvious, it's because people, even though they know it in their head, they get bogged down with the logistics of sitting down and like writing out or making changes. It's not a big deal. The business plan is not supposed to be something so burdensome that you just dread doing. You have to do it. You're changing things as you go in your head. Make sure your written document outlines that. And then reach out, ask for help. The Nebraska Business Development is here to help you with things like that. That's kind of the gist of what I have. I mean, we talked about the tool, and I wanted to go into detail with it. I wasn't sure. I wanted to use examples, but I wasn't really sure what my audience looks like. So there's 42 people. I'm not sure if you're all business owners. I don't know if some of you work with business owners. So I kept the actual Lean Canvas presentation fairly short because I wasn't sure what the needs were. I do have the handouts available. I will make them available. I'll be happy to work with anyone one-on-one to fill this out if they need help. I say we kind of open it up for questions and see if we can expand on some of the things I talked about. But we can tailor it to specifically what you need. Rick, what do you think? Oh, wait a minute. I have more things. So I know you know how I mentioned the whole Lean movement for entrepreneurship. I kind of just assume that everyone has heard of it because it's such a big thing right now. But if you haven't, or if you just want to learn more about it, if you're interested, so here are a few books that you can start with. These are just my recommendations. There's a lot more out there. You can Google them. There's a lot of information available, but these are a good place to start. Now there we go.
There we go. Now it's time for questions. Aretha, that was terrific. Thank you very much. So the one question that was written in by Ed, thank you, Ed, was a question, and maybe you want to swing back to the slide of the tool that you had, of the Canvas.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, was where can we get that? And so I sent out an answer to him, and I think to everybody, and I also put it out there on the chat. We will send a copy of the slides to all the registered attendees after the webinar is over, and then we'll also post that on the NBDC site. Now, just from a logistics standpoint and a flow standpoint, if everybody is still muted, and I'm not going to unmute you quite yet. I'm going to encourage you to send in questions using the questions function that's there while we let Wei add on to what Aretha has already said, and then we'll go ahead and pop open, unmute everybody, or at least those who are raising their hands, to ask questions. So go ahead, Wei.
And I actually, way before you start, I have one more comment. I did not include our traditional business template on purpose because it was my understanding that a lot of the people on the call are more interested in innovation and SBIR, CTR type funding. But if you guys want me to pull up the business plan template, the traditional business plan template, and talk about that, I am more than happy to do it. I have it, available, and I can just pull it up. If not, I'll just take any answers on the Lean Canvas.
Wei, so go ahead and make a comment, Wei, and then I've got several questions that I've got to respond to, or that we have to respond to. Go ahead.
Awesome.
Okay, thanks, Aretha, for giving us this great webinar. Here I really want to say we will have several webinars and workshops coming next couple months. So please watch your emails. I will send out the notification. In early December, we will have a workshop focusing on market research, and we will talk about how to do the SWOT analysis for your market research, or how to do the market research for yourself, and or what the database you can use. And maybe we have financial workshops as well later in December.
Okay, thanks. Let me get to the questions because there are quite a few of them. So I think I've answered, can we get a copy of the presentation? The answer is yes, and we will have contact information as well. The call-in number for NBDC is 402-554-2521. So you can call, but we will definitely make our email and contact information available. Aretha, do you have any value proposition examples?
That's a good question. Putting me right on the spot. So let's think of a product that we would like to do this for.
Or way. So
let's think of something outlandish. Let's say you're coming up with, I don't know, some new headphones that have the ability to, I don't know, read your thoughts and just dictate what you're thinking to your phone or something like that, something ridiculous like that. But it helps to look at these grandiose ideas. So your value proposition would have to point out why having that additional capability of just dictating through your headphones to your phone is valuable, how people can use it, and why people would invest more in these headphones than they would in other ones that are a lot cheaper out there. So the value proposition is really what makes your product unique and better. So this is you telling the customer, this is why this product is the best option for you, the customer. So the value proposition not only highlights the value of your product, but it also shows why other products don't compare. And it sounds simple, but it's not, because you want to make this as objective as possible. So, I get people who come in and say my product is the best because they're personally attached to it. And that's not enough. You need to have something that convinces the user that they need it, that they want it. Because people don't necessarily always buy what they need because they don't know what they need, but they will buy what they want, what they think they need. So making them want it is what the value proposition does. I know my example wasn't very good, but if we have an example of a product, I would be happy to talk about it.
Well, we have a lot of questions and not a lot of time, so I think we'll have to go with. I think we'll go with that. One example that I might throw out there is why is a cell phone better than a landline? Originally it was the battery will die, you might lose it. So that's kind of the opposite of the value proposition. So what are the arguments that make a cell phone better or a mobile phone better than a landline? And so it's portable, it's always with you, it's there in case of an emergency, so those are the kinds of things. Am I on the right track on that?
Yes, you are on the right track.
Okay.
So the solution to the problem would be, instead of the solution is the cell phone, which is an alternative to the landline. Then the value proposition is why the cell phone is a better option for the user and why they should want this instead of the other option.
Very good. So is there a different version of the Canvas for nonprofits?
There is. I was actually looking at Steve Blank's website, and he has a different version of the business model canvas that is specifically for nonprofits. I can find it and make sure we forward it as well. So it's similar. It uses I think 9 boxes, but the boxes are different.
Very good.
So I can look into that, and I'm pretty sure because I looked at it. I saw the template. I'm pretty sure he has instructions for how to fill it out as well.
Very good. But just as an aside, nonprofits are not clients that are normally worked with by the NBDC, but we are happy, of course, to help you with that question, answer the question.
Yes.
The next question, it's kind of a comment. Yes, I would like to see the traditional Canvas. So the traditional Canvas is what we presented, correct?
No, it's not. This is NBDC's version of it.
Oh, that's right.
The traditional one, you can Google it, but I can also send it out. We have it. I mean, I have the book and it's in here. But it covers some slightly different areas. And like I said in the presentation, the reason we changed ours was to make it more, I guess, palatable and easier to use for our audience, which is a mix of both innovative entrepreneurs and traditional business owners. But the original Canvas has key partners, key activities, key resources, still has value proposition, customer relationship, channels. So it's a slightly different one, but we can make sure you get a copy as well.
Yeah, there was more than one request for that, so absolutely we'll do that.
Yes.
Another question, could you please provide a list of typical, in quotes, business costs, such as insurance, office space, office overhead? So that's the question. Can you provide a list of typical business costs?
I can absolutely do that. You want it over the now, or I could put one together and send it out.
Yeah, I think
we will send out the slides so we can include that in part of it.
Yeah, I can add. I think what I'll do is, I know these slides focus on the Lean Business Canvas, but I will include some of the other templates we use for more traditional businesses, and we have a list of all the common costs and things like that, so that should help. So we'll just add more information to this presentation.
Okay, and so
then we'll send out the slides.
So so just to clarify, because the question came in, when we provide the information, we will provide it to everyone who is a registered attendee.
Sure.
And then this is being recorded, so then also those questions will be around for a long time, and people can can circle back to us and find out how we answered it. If you pick this up 2 months from now or 2 years from now. Okay, so I think we've hit all of the questions. Sorry to Terry just a little bit, but yes, we have answered all the questions at this point.
Well, is there anything we haven't covered that you wish we had covered?
That's out to the audience. At this point, I'm hesitant to do this because we have so many people, but I could unmute them. Oh, here we go. Here's another question. Is there a guideline of cost as a percentage of revenue? Kind of a blueprint. So should insurance be like 2% of revenue, or is that clear as a question?
Yes, and my answer is that it depends on the kind of business you're in. Obviously, some businesses, some forms of businesses have a higher risk. I mean, if you have a restaurant, you have a bunch of people walking up and down, and they have a chance of slipping on, a piece of lettuce and breaking their skull, and then you have, things like that. Your insurance needs are very different than if you are providing a consulting service, obviously. So it really depends on what industry you're in. We do at NBDC have access to a couple of databases that help us pull industry benchmarks and things like that. So if you have like a NAICS code, or you know what industry you're in, we could pull that up and kind of see where everybody else is and give you, kind of an idea of where you need to be. But there's no magic formula out there that says, this has to be 2% of sales, and there's none of that across the board.
So a follow-up question, understood that there are ranges depending on the type of business, but to quote the questioner, thinking more in the line of rent should be 5%. So are there some things that are not, these are my words now, so there's some things that are consistent across NAICS codes?
Nope. There's no such thing. If you are a retail space and a big part of your business is having room to display all your merchandise and all of that, then rent is a way bigger part of your cost structure because you're paying for prime space. Now, if you are an accounting person, or you're doing the books for a business, you may need a little hole-in-the-wall office because you're not meeting anyone face-to-face, or maybe you go to their location, you need an office space, but you don't really care where it is. So your rent is totally different because it's not part of your overall selling points. I don't know if that makes sense. But, like I said, retail stores have super high rent because they want to be in popular parts of town. They want the foot traffic. They'll pay for a prime location because it's part of what they sell. That's part of what makes them attractive. But if you're a dentist and people know you, you may not care so much if your office is somewhat tucked away. Or maybe you do. So it really depends. I really hesitate to tell you that there's one formula out there because it typically, there isn't.
Very good. One question on the mechanics again. Will we send out the recording? We will not send out the recording, but we will make it available on the website.
Okay.
So hang on, the questions are still coming in fast. Is this something I should schedule an appointment with to get more specific? I've got a bit of a complicated business model. How much time should I spend distilling everything down to fit on the Lean Business Campus before I get started on the narrative? I see the activity as being valuable, the activity of the canvas, but I can also see it being frustrating as we are dealing with many levels, different user types and problem solutions for each user type. Or is it better to do a lean canvas for each user type? That was a long question.
Yeah. Yes, and that's what I was going to come to. It's not unusual for one business entity to have multiple streams of revenue, different products they're trying to sell, or different customers they're trying to service. I would say if you have very specific divisions like that or segments within your business, that you should address each division separately, because you cannot use the same strategy all across the board if your customers are different and your product is slightly different, or just one of those two things is different. So you would have to do a Lean Business Canvas for each segment. And I think part of the question was also whether it was worth the time investment. It totally is. The Lean Business Canvas is supposed to be something you can just print and just write on and say, okay, these are my thoughts here. Just put some bullet points, but have kind of the whole picture on one page. And then you can build a more comprehensive narrative that then includes all the different versions of your lean Business Canvas. The other thing I'll say is that if the person asking the question is a startup, then they probably should figure out where to start. Which one of all of these different sources of revenue they need to start with, because it's really hard to start one piece of the business, let alone start multiple streams of revenue at the same time. It's usually a better approach to use more of a phased, a phased approach to starting multiple streams. So you start with one, where you build it up, then you move on to the next. So going through the Lean Business Canvas for each product line or source of revenue would be a good way to figure out which one of those lines is the better one to start with, because it'll be the one that you have the most information for and the most information about, the one that's easier to fill out in the Lean Canvas. I would start there and then slowly add things as your business picks up.
And the start of that was, is it worth coming in to meet you? And I will just say the answer is yes.
Yes. Oh,
okay.
yeah. So what I'll say is our services are, most of our services at NBC are free. So if you just want to come in and talk to someone, you should do so. You don't really have much to lose. Or give us a phone call, and the worst thing we can do is tell you that we don't know. If it's something we can look into, we'll research, we'll send you to the right place. But if we just absolutely cannot find the answer, we'll tell you we don't know. That's the worst that can happen.
Very good. There are 3 questions left. It's 3 o'clock. So this is when we had planned to finish. I'm not going to stop the questions as long as, Aretha, you are available to answer them. But I do want to recognize that this is the time we had planned to close. But as long as there are questions, we will stay here to answer them. Is Wei, you're okay with that too?
Okay, I'm still here.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. So if you are offering a service instead of a product, would you still follow the same process?
Yes. I think you would, because you may not have as much in terms of cost structure, so not all the boxes will fill out the same, but I still think it's a worthwhile service. I mean, it's a worthwhile exercise, because it gets you to think about, first of all, what you're trying to do out there, what problem you're solving, what your solution should look like, who your customers should be, why your customers would buy your service. And then with services, depending on what you do, it's really hard to price them because a lot of people I work with who provide services, especially consulting services, have the hardest time figuring out how to price their services and make it worth their time. So if you can come up with a value proposition that really sells you, then you can charge more. Because people will pay more if they perceive that they're getting something of a higher quality. So I still think this exercise is worth it. I just don't think you have to worry about making sure each box is super heavy and, you know, that you have to have like so many costs listed. You don't have to. If you don't have many costs, then that's fine. But don't forget to count your time as your time investment as a cost.
Very good. Thank you. The next question. You've already kind of answered it. Do you have any good finished plans we could see? An example of a well-formatted plan, etc.
Yes, there are. I can find some. If you have a particular industry in mind, you can send me an email. I'm sure we'll provide my contact information, and I can send you something for that or something close to that industry. But I mean, there are plenty of them on the internet, and I will never share any of my clients' business plans, but I can find some generic ones to share with you.
Very good. Thank you.
And
go ahead.
And for the more innovative kind, I think we can ask Wei to see if she has something that's more of an example, because my business plans are more for the traditional mom and pop shops and mechanic repair stores and things like that.
Very good. Thank you. And the last question that's been submitted, nope, there's another one, is we have been in business for a long time but don't have a written business plan. Is there a value of having one? Would we start with this template?
I say there is value, and maybe I'm a little bit biased because that's what I do, work with business plans, but there is value because there's a lot of things that you think you know or that you keep all in your head that when you put in writing give you a very different perspective of how your business is operating. So maybe you think you have a process in place, and then when you have to write down other processes, you don't really know what it looks like. It's something that just gets taken care of, it gets done, but it's never a particular process, or it's not linear the way you want it to be. I think there is value in writing it out. It doesn't have to be, again, you don't have to write a novel. It's not an academic paper. It's you just saying, this is how we run our operation. And it's a great tool for someone who's been in business for a while. If you are at a point where you're hiring employees or you're trying to get to the point where you step back and you're not the one-person operation that does everything, if you want to have like a general manager take over parts of your business, if you're at a point where you're scaling up and you need to grow and you as the business owner want to step back a little bit, having a written document is key, because no one will understand your business the way you do, and if you want them to follow your vision, you need to put it in writing so they know what's expected. It's not sufficient to have conversations and talk to people and think that they will remember. They won't. You have to put it in writing. So I think it's worthwhile. That's why large corporations, they have internal strategic plans and things like that. It's just part of good business to have something in writing that, you know, summarizes everything you're doing. So it is worth it. That's what I think.
Okay. There have been 2 more questions come in. Will you review and critique business plans?
Yes, that's actually what we do. We'll review and critique. We won't write them for you because there's something to be said about the business person owning their business idea and writing their own business plan. It's a valuable exercise, but once you put it together, we will review it. We will give you feedback.
Last plan.
And we'll do it for free.
Did you say you'd do it for free?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that, Rick.
I'm sorry. I was confused about whether I was muted or unmuted. Just want to make sure that you said you'd do it for free.
Yes.
Okay. The last question that I have, so not saying it has to be, but it's the last one I have. I'm looking to start an art shop. What about business plans for artists? Is this a different approach?
This This is interesting. I'm pretty sure you could use the same approach. You can tailor this to anything you're doing. Now the challenge with an art shop is different. I mean, no, it's the same challenge every business has. How do you differentiate yourself from similar shops, right? And what is your true value proposition? Are you giving people a place to display their art, or is it more you want this to be a place where you create a community and the artists can connect with their audience? I mean, what I'm not really sure, but you have to have an angle there that makes people want to come to you. So I think this is still worth it. And what is the revenue stream? How do you do that? You know, do you I'm assuming this is like a gallery type place. So do you display things and then when you sell them get a percentage, or do you charge for displaying, or how do you monetize this? So I still think this is a valuable exercise. Does that answer the question?
It does answer the question in my eyes, and if we don't see anything written further, then it answers the question. So
yeah, and then the thing. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
And the whole, identifying the problem. So you're starting an art shop. So what is the problem? What is the problem you're trying to solve? And there has to be one. You can't just say, oh, I'm opening an art shop because I like art. Yeah, but you're not opening it for you. You're expecting some kind of a customer relationship. You're expecting, if you're making this into a business, there has to be more than just you doing it for your own sake. So this exercise will actually help you think about those things that may be a little bit uncomfortable and maybe don't come to you automatically. It's not as obvious, but you have to think about. So I think it's a one-page exercise. Spend half an hour trying to go through it once and see how far you get.
Okay, so we don't have any more questions. People are dropping off the call since we've gone past our time. Got to thank you for the answers to the last one. At this point, Aretha, do you have any summary remarks? And then Wei after Aretha, please.
Yes, I have a couple of remarks. I didn't want to go into the nitty-gritty of this is how you write your cost structure and all that, because my whole goal was to take away the stigma that comes with writing a business plan. It's not, you're not in college, this is not an academic exercise. It doesn't have to be burdensome. It's a valuable tool for you as an entrepreneur to help your idea come to life. And when you think about it from that perspective, it makes you want to write it. At least that's how I feel. So hopefully you walk away thinking that writing a business plan is not so bad and it might actually be fun.
Wei?
I don't have any comments right now, and thanks, Aretha.
Yes, many thanks to everybody. Give us a day to gather all the information together and get it posted and sent out to everybody. So thank you very much. And with that, we'll be done.